Welcome to On the Couch, the podcast where real conversations meet real change. Pull up a seat, get comfortable, and join us as we dive deep into the conversations that matter most to Black and Brown communities. Hosted by Dr. Diamond and an incredible lineup of co-hosts, On the Couch brings you raw, insightful, and empowering discussions, from mental health and wellness to entrepreneurship, life insurance, healthcare, and everything in between. Our mission is simple: to educate, uplift, and create space for conversations that need to be heard. Whether you're here for practical advice, motivation, or just a dose of inspiration, you've come to the right place. So sit back, relax, and let's talk about the things that shape our lives, our futures, and our communities. This is On the Couch, where we keep it real, keep it relevant, and keep it moving. Let's get started.
Good morning and welcome to On the Couch, where we provide you vital information. So today, we are going to have three guests on today: Tammy Lowry, Judith Lewis, and Felipe Blue. We are really excited about speaking with them today and having this conversation continue about mental health. So we're going to delve into mental health because it's also this mental health month is geared to men. So mental health in men. Know when to seek help for your mental health. Mental health is important, and we promote this a lot on the show, as well as other things that we talk about that's vital to our communities. But before I get started, of course, I got to bring in my co-hosts here. I got Mark Lee waiting in the wings and Miss Toya waiting in the wings, and we're going to just chop it up a little bit about some local news and some, United States news, because there's a lot of stuff going on right now. So let me bring them on in and let's get it started. All right, you two. Okay. We got some exciting guests on today. Thank you, Mark, for the referral. We are looking forward to our mental health experts, and they all three, from reading their backgrounds, there's so much different things that they're doing. So I'm excited about talking about them. So I can't wait for them to come on shortly with us. But before we get started, there is a lot of stuff going on in the news. Okay, we got local stuff going on here. We have United States, but let's talk about what's getting ready to happen in DC today. I am curious about your feelings about the military forces that will be parading up and down. I would say it should be Constitution Avenue, because that's going up and down in DC. So I am curious to know, how do you two feel about what's getting ready to happen in a little bit?
Well, I don't know what's going to happen in New Jersey and in the other parts of places that people are listening and all along those lines. But I know right here in Durham, North Carolina, they're going to have a major No Kings protest that'll be going on from 12 to 3:30. And there are a lot of those going on around because a lot of folks are going like this whole notion of a celebration of the Army. And I do have relatives that served in the military, so I have mad respect for those that were in the military. Right. But let's be honest, this was really nothing but a big Trump birthday party, because that's really what he wanted all along, and that's what he's been trying to get, was a big Trump birthday party. So he just used the Army as an excuse, and that's why a lot of people around the country have been upset at what was going on with our brown brothers and the deportation efforts and the using the military to back up ICE and things along those lines, and even usurping the power of the governor of California, and that was turned down, and a number of other things. So they've given that control back to Gavin Newsom and everything. But yeah, if I wasn't working, I'd probably be at that protest as well, because I know a lot of my brethren will be there at that particular protest that's going on in Durham at this area that's sometimes called the People's Plaza, or sometimes called the where Major the Bull is, which is one of our symbols. It's a big bull cow and everything, but it's one of the symbols of Durham, which is the Bull City and everything. So I imagine that there'll probably be hundreds, if not thousands, of people out at that particular event. And there are other rallies in Charlotte, Asheville, Raleigh, a number of other of our cities around here and throughout the country. So they said that there are going to be a lot of folks on the streets basically letting the president know that while he might have won the election, he didn't win the hearts of everybody in terms of the popularity and things like that. And a lot of people are upset by what he's doing and what his folks that are in his camp are doing as well. Because I still don't understand what the heck Christy Nome or RFK Jr. or Pete Hedges or a number of these other folks have got on their mind and everything like that. So I don't know what Miss Toya's got to say about that. But I just, as far as I'm concerned, it's just him trying to have one big birthday party for himself.
79 birthday. Right, exactly. 79 birthday, coincident, and it's Flag Day. And as I said previously, you know our flag, if you go to the government sites, that's not our flag. So I'm just trying to understand everything that he's doing, in my opinion, is a shit show. I don't like to use vulgar language, but again, if we need to just see the commentary, listen to it, see what we're going to see. But today is the Flag Day. June 14th is Flag Day, right? But now it's 3 different things. But we're going to see how much it is focused around the flag, which still is questionable to me. Because when I do look to the IRS website, it's not the flag that we're flying. It's still the one with the Confederate. I'm going to just look at it, guys. You know, we need to be aware of current events. But just go to the .gov and see what flag is there. It's very small in the corner, but it's not the flag that we have when we do our Pledge of Allegiance. And that still bothers me. But again, it's his birthday. And I'm just going to sit here with my mental popcorn and see what unfolds. Because again, everything that we're seeing in the media is distractions. So I'm just waiting for it. Because I don't believe it. I don't buy it.
Mm-hmm. It is about him, and you're correct. It's nothing about the military at all. It's a selfish act. Think about the other countries like Korea, Vietnam, Russia. Do you see how they actually parade up and down when they are doing their parades? They're so stiff and robotic looking. And I think that's what he wants our soldiers to do. That's what he was saying. He's so infatuated with what that looks like. He thinks that's okay here to do that here. And then the taxpayers, let's talk about us, because we got to pay for that later.
Oh, yeah.
Because they
close the streets.
Billions of dollars.
They said 46 million, isn't it?
Yes. At least millions, yes. With millions of dollars like that, what we're paying for is the military's time and the usage of their equipment. So we're talking about tanks, Humvees, planes, you name it. And it's okay. And what I don't understand is how come these Republicans are so dense that they are allowing these things to continue to happen? Like, they make excuses for everything he's doing. I don't understand what they don't see that we are seeing. I don't get it.
Well, I did read an article recently that they are saying that even some of his own brethren, some of his GOP brethren, are starting to jump ship and everything like that. So we'll see how many of them are jumping ship. But they're even saying that many Republicans plan to skip this particular parade. So it's not just the demonstrators and everything, but definitely it sounds like there are some folks that are even being upset by the current administration, including some in his own party and everything like that. So maybe there'll be a little bit of a break in this MAGA wing, because MAGA definitely was in control, but it seems like some of maybe the more moderates and others are basically getting a little bit turned off by the nature of the second administration, of the Trump administration.
I'm going to say something. I Googled CBS News. Let me just tell you what they have. What's the purpose of the military parade? This is what's in print, okay? Saturday's events are intended to mark the 250th birthday of the Army. Okay, that's a good point. The U.S. Army was established in June 14, 1775 by the Second Continental Congress, and a little over a year before the Declaration of Independence was signed. Okay, then it says, more broadly, the president has declared Saturday a celebration of the country, intended to recognize America's accomplishments, both the battlefield and off it. Mr. Trump has particularly touted America's victories in World War I and World War II. So I'm just saying this in the airways to see what actually happens. This is some history for us, but we're going to see what it looks like, right? Because you think that's rich here, 250 years. I'm thinking if we're celebrating a momentous occasion, there should be some things over those 250 years. So we're going to see what this parade is going to look like. That was from what the news said, right?
The history of the United States, if we were to talk about how toxic it is, it's a toxic environment. Although we love the United States because we were born here, but if we were to live somewhere else and come here, you start to think, what is wrong with the people? And it's not all of us, but it's what is wrong with these people. But see, it all started when they decided to come over here on their ships. And they so-called discovered a place that they didn't even know where they were. And we're talking about Christopher Columbus. He had no idea until a Black navigator brought him here. He had no idea where he was going. And then when you sent them, and I'm talking about Europe, when you sent him over here, you sent him with criminals, because all of them were criminals. So what will criminals do? Continue to do criminal behavior. Yes, steal, all of the things that they have done. But if you look at just in general, the toxic types of behavior, and we are still dealing with that right now. But what I want to,
Yeah, we're still dealing with it now. We're still dealing with it right now. And I just saw something. Speaking of Google, I just stumbled across something that you two ladies might be interested in, everything along those lines. And it deals with media, deals with our Black-owned media companies and everything like this. But it just came across my news feed that McDonald's has reached a settlement in the $10 billion lawsuit brought by Brian Allen's Allen Entertainment Studios, in which the media mogul accused the fast food company of discriminating against Black-owned media companies. And we know that Brian Allen owns the Weather Channel and a number of other things as well. But yeah, they just released a joint statement on yesterday revealing that they'd come to an agreement to settle pending litigation between them. At the tail end of the last year, U.S. District Judge Fernando Olguin found that McDonald's may have violated federal and civil rights laws by keeping separate advertising tiers for companies who create content market toward Black audiences. So we are pleased to find a resolution that maintains our business relationship, is what Allen's Entertainment Studios and the Weather Channel said in a statement. During the course of this litigation, many of our preconceptions have been clarified, and we acknowledge McDonald's commitment to investing in Black-owned media properties and increasing access to opportunities. Our differences are behind us, and we look forward to working together. Hey, Dr. April,
what they had the AEOC on here? I'm just serious. I'm confused because is that a money grab? Because
that sounds like a money grab.
Because I just know that if I have a business and I'm marketing, I'm going to market what I want. So now someone said, okay, you don't have enough Black people on the commercials. Yeah,
it sounds like a money grab. I think that Dr. April and Toya, we might need to have this particular show get some money from McDonald's.
But you know what? And I don't mean to go off on a tangent. This is what someone was saying, with these trials that are going on, that people make up false information. And because they don't want to defame the character, they pay folks. I heard this, but I said, is this really something that happens? So that means that there are people out there. Remember our guest, the Black with the from the brigade. Remember our guest?
Oh yeah.
Black Brigade. Remember he was saying that with the history. Folks are coming up with information because if they're doing something so meaty, they'll just pay people. But there are folks that come up with lawsuits and they do that. And I just never thought, and just hearing this, the content, if I have a business, I can use whatever marketing firm I want. But I know that when it comes to employment, the EEOC, you say, okay, I'm going to call NAACP. You're supposed to have a certain amount if it's a government job. You're supposed to have equality. But I'm just kind of stuck on that. Am I just silly?
Well, we know that money is the root of all evil, and it speaks for everything, right? Just think about our government today. That's money right there. The squandering of money. That's one way of looking at it, because money is being squandered, and now we're already in a recession, and we're going to be in a worse one. When you think about business itself, okay, Byron Allen, let's really address that. Is he helping the Black community really? Or is it about you layering your pockets? Listen, brother, I'm not trying to disrespect you or say anything out of the way. What I'm saying is, how does this really help us? On the media level, does this actually help the younger ones that are coming behind in media? And what they do? Right. internships and stuff like that. So I'm curious to know what is the underlining, like the sub topics and the sub jobs possibly, and sub conversations that are going to happen. So then when we're talking about this big win, because it is a big win, how is this going to help? And will our people get scholarships to be in media? You see what I mean? So I want to know the layers of this. Not just because they have the partnership, but what does the partnership entail? To me, that's kind of vague. What you were reading, Mark, is like, this is what happened. This is what the settlement is. But what else is a part of that? What's happening?
They're not going to disclose it. Maybe to shut his mouth up. Because that's what I think. And I'm going to bring T.I. and Tanya. They talked about T.I., but he's opening housing. My church, we were doing for the United Negro College Fund for 2 months. We collected money. They said in New Jersey, all the pastors and everyone, the clergy, was getting money. Okay, they're taking these scholarships from the government. We're going to seed. So I make sure I put something in my tithe and, and a special offering for that. So I want to hear a headline that, I was awarded this now to make sure that this doesn't happen. We're going to have these internships. We're going to donate some scholarship for the media, for the Black colleges. What are we going to do about that? That's what we need to talk about.
Yeah, we definitely got to talk about that. I did have a question because, Toy, if I remember correctly, did you? I can't remember. I know you have family that served in the military. I can't remember if you served in the military as well and everything. But I do see that a lot of military folks are upset at the fact that they're being deployed and everything like that, and they are having some serious questions about who is deploying them and why they're being deployed. Because even in Texas, more than 5,000 Texas National Guard troops are being deployed across the state in anticipation of the no-scales protests against President Donald Trump this weekend and everything. And there are some newly obtained internal documents that suggest that the Texas Military Department is facing significant logistic and personnel challenges as it races to meet the governor's directives, because apparently there's some people that are in the military that aren't too pleased with the fact that they've got to go and basically go against some of their own family and everything, because we do know that there are a lot of Black and brown people that are in the military, and if there's going to be dealing with deployment, who are you going to be dealing with deployment against? You're probably going to be dealing with folks that are of your same complexion. And I know that there was a recent video where the San Antonio mayor told Trump to uphold his oath to the Constitution amid this whole notion of Texas troop deployment and everything like that. So definitely it looks like there's some folks that are pushing back, because one guardsman even questioned the political motivation of their deployment, said that it does strike me as a suppression of free speech ahead of time. And he said, did I swear an oath to the president? Did I swear an oath to the governor? Or did I swear an oath to our basic inalienable rights and everything like that? So there's some people in the military that are having some serious questions about the notion of what they're being ordered to do.
Yeah, and then my fear is that if you don't care for us and you have us all in one area, okay? Right. Because right now we've seen what the violence could look like. And I understand that you signed an oath and you're participating in the Defense Department. However, it needs to make sense, and I look at that. I'm sorry to be skeptical, but I just know that when the attacks in Washington occurred and no one was arrested and whatever happened, I don't want to go down because it makes me upset. But if you have everybody together, our folks, and now we have what's going on in the media, it puts us all together. So if someone had an agenda, so I just, safety first, but it has to make sense. It has to make sense. And and now I know why the little kids, I said to my son, why don't you go into, that's not for me, Mom. I said, but then you'll become a veteran. And now when it's quiet, that means that gives you an elevated status. If there's a government job, that puts you at the top of the list, doesn't matter your age. And that's what it was in my family. My grandfather served in World War I. Wait, I'm gonna get it right. I gotta get it. There's some people in my family, they served in World War I, World War II. I have to look at the Korean War, but I just know there was a military family. That's why I went into ROTC. However, I felt it wasn't for me, but I got to see it. But I feel that used to be the end all for the Black and brown people was going into the military. But right now, I would not want my child to be deployed, to be involved with who's in charge. I'm sorry. So
we're going to shift gears because our guests are here. We're excited about talking to them today. I cannot wait. All three of them are right here in the studio waiting to come in. So Mark, like I said, thank you very much for this, their referral. And again, mental health month, right? This is about men now, and how important this is. So I'm hoping that we can delve into a wonderful conversation with them. So we have Camille Brown Lowry, and then we also have Judith Lewis as well, and then we do have Felipe Blue. So they are waiting in the background. What we will ask them to do, of course, is to introduce themselves to our listeners, but let's welcome them on the couch because we are looking forward to talking to them. So we're going to bring them on in. Welcome, you all. How are you?
Hey, good morning.
We are so happy that you all are joining us today to bring your expertise. And of course, I love mental health because that's where I prominently work at least in the evenings. I have my own practice going on, but it is important, our mental health, that we talk about it, promote it as much as we can. So we thank you all for coming on today. So what we'd like for you to do before we get started is introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about your backgrounds and then what you are doing currently now.
Okay, I want to go in order. Go ahead.
Sure. All right. My name is Judith Lewis. I am a mental health therapist, and I've been in mental health since 2009, working majority with people with depression, anxiety, trauma. Currently, I am doing outpatient therapy, telehealth, but yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. I am Camille Brown Lowry. I am a mental health community worker. I have worked in intensive in-home therapy, MST. Oh my gosh. I worked with drug court here in back in Wake County some years ago. And I also did some school-based therapy in South Carolina for a couple years. I took a step away from therapy for a little bit and went into research because research is also my second love, specifically looking at health disparity research. I currently work at Duke conducting clinical trials. Well, not conducting them, but supporting clinical trials. I one day want to be the one conducting them, but yeah.
And I'm Felipe Blue. I'm a licensed therapist in the Durham and surrounding areas. My focus is mainly addiction and trauma therapy, as it really impacted my family since coming over from Haiti and Cuba. And I really wanted to be the change that I wish my family would have received.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for joining the world of mental health, because it's not a lot of us here. And it is just so difficult to find a person that looked like you to talk to. So again, we thank you very much for being on today and also getting into this profession, because you're embarking on entering the world of other people's issues and problems. And then you got to think about, how do I deal with that? We were briefly talking about a few minutes ago this parade that's getting ready to happen. So I'm curious to know too from you all, before we delve into really this mental health, what are you all thinking about this parade that's going to happen? And then it's going to cost us, because he's not paying for it, but we are. So what do you all think?
That is a tunnel. That's not even a rabbit hole. I think it is. I think sometimes we're trapped kind of between a rock and a hard place. Unfortunately, our military I'm a wife of a military veteran, so they have to honor and support who the leader. That's what they're trained to do, and so it's unfortunate that the person that is currently leading our country doesn't really care about science. They don't care about health. They don't care about, just to say it blatantly, Black and brown people. And so what ends up happening is they kind of throw it in our faces that there are concessions made for others, but not for us. And so I think what's happening is there's a rumbling in our communities where we're recognizing that we have to be, number one, we have to stand up for ourselves. We have to start, in a sense, creating our own and really kind of separating ourselves. I mean, I know some people who are thinking, you know what, I am going to leave America altogether. I'm going to go to other countries, specifically Africa, like, you know, and highlighting the beauty of that and saying, let's go back to our homeland in a sense. But I think that that's not something that everybody can do. And I just feel like, you know, it's terrible. It's terrible.
I personally don't watch the news for my own
Okay.
state of wellness, so I don't have a lot of information as it pertains to it. The little bit of information I do see, it like you said, he's not paying for it, we're paying for it. I think that we've paid too much in this country at generation after generation, and I think it's time for us to pay back into ourselves and focus on what we can do to make the change for us.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Felipe, you said something interesting, and I've heard that from other people as well and everything. Do you think that that's a good way, and how do you think that that works with our mental health? Because I've heard, you're not the first person I've heard say that they have started turning off the news, turning off social media, because a lot of times there can be a lot of negativity within that space, and it can definitely impact our mental health. So this is for all three of you, Camille included, and everything. But I was just wondering, how do you feel about that? Because I'm hearing a lot of people from varying age ranges. I'm in my 60s, but I'm hearing it even from some of my 80-year old folks that are in my parents' generations, and definitely some that are in their 40s and 30s that are like you. They're like, it's too depressing. I'm not watching the news. It just drives me crazy if I keep watching the news. So they are
Mhm.
finding other ways to get the news out there. So I just wanted your take on that. And do you think that that's something more people need to do in order to have better mental health?
I believe that it's a dual sword. It could be a flip side of a coin. You don't have a lot of information, and then you're protecting yourself from the damage of certain information. If NPR was going to be adequately funded or could continue their funding, that would be where I would get all my news. That's really the only place I really get information, because they seem to have a non-biased stand. Fox News, they highly cater to the drama, the sensationalism of what's going on. And then we also see MSNBC and CNN sometimes floating towards that. You think they're aligned with what's right, but then they're more aligned with what's going to get them ratings. I think for wellness, try to find a non-biased way of getting information, a non, a fact stance versus opinions and things like that. I know that I had to turn off my notifications on my phone because I have Apple News and so I just
Mhm.
turned off the news and only put the things that really wouldn't impact me like that. Popular science, Wired, things like that, things other interests I have to keep up with those type of things. So like I said, it can be good, it can be bad. Of course, you're not going to have all the information everybody else has, but let's put it out there. They only put out the information they want you to know anyway.
That's true.
It's
Agreed.
true.
And thank you for that. You said NPR. I just Googled it because that's one of the things that I'm having a problem with when accessing, because there's a lot of artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
YouTube has certain particular platforms, it's easy to get to it. But right now, I feel that the children that are, the upcoming generation, they know more what we know. But then when you look at something and it's not vetted, then you have this false narrative and you're sharing it and it's not correct.
Yep.
And I don't want to bring up the trial that's national now, but there's a lot of things that are being put out there as false.
Right.
So, we need to have something that's non-biased. So thank you for that. I'm going to add that to my daily feed because I need to be well informed, because every time I turn it on when I have the moment, it's something that's negative.
Yeah.
And I'm protecting my mental health.
A lot of negative news and everything. Just really quickly and all along those lines, because I know we were going to get into the mental health, but one of the things that I'm definitely curious to hear from our guests is there are a lot of people, particularly in our Black and Brown community, that are have kind of phobias about mental health and mental therapy and all along those lines. So I'm just wondering y'all's thoughts around that and how y'all get past that, because all three of you have done work in the field, and we do know that there are a lot of people that in Black and Brown community that if you tell them that you are in therapy or that you are thinking about doing therapy, they look at you with a side eye and want to know what's wrong with you and all along those lines. So I just wondered how y'all deal with that, because that is a part of the field, and I have a brother that works with at-risk youth and everything. He's been doing that for a number of years and everything, so I know how it can impact the work that is done. But I just wondered how y'all deal with it in your own work.
Mhm.
I know for me, I personalize it because I think I've dealt with a lot of people that not only are in the field, that don't really fully recognize it within their own home. So for when I'm working with my clients, or when I'm just having a general conversation with family and friends that are kind of like taboo, and I just let them know it's okay. Just like we go to the doctor to go get our regular checkups, we don't judge anybody for having diabetes or for having high blood pressure. We make sure we take those type of medications. So why can't we do it for our mental health? Why does it have to be, oh, something's wrong with you because you have depression? Oh, just snap out of it. You can be happy if you choose to. Well, you can be healthy if you choose to as well, but it's still a struggle. And we go seek help when it comes to our physical body, but that also ties in with our mental health too. If you're not physically well, it can impact your mental. So just helping them see it, sometimes just breaking it down to them like they're two, um, really kind of help, especially with people that I've dealt with recently.
I'll add to that too. One of the things that has really kind of helped me, because I used to work with children and families, and a lot of times it's starting them off early with understanding to normalize emotional intelligence and development. Like talking about your emotions is normal, it's okay. Anger is normal. I remember meeting with children and them trying to hide that anger or trying to hide their sadness because they're like, well, I shouldn't be feeling this way. No, feelings are feelings. You're supposed to have them. That's normal. You know, and the other thing too is with therapy, a lot of times people feel like I got to talk to somebody I don't know, who doesn't understand me and who doesn't look like me. So I think number one is finding people that look like them. But two, also understanding that you don't have to go to every, like the therapist that you see on TV or whatever that you've got this image of, that is not what a therapist or a psychologist may look like. And you don't have to stay with the person that you don't like. If you don't like this person, guess what? You have the autonomy to pick somebody else. I think that was something that is not always kind of discussed. Like you can try different therapists. You don't have to just go to one. It's not one size fits all. Find what works for you. And if you got to shop around like you pick your friends like you pick your fruit, pick your therapist like you pick your fruit.
Nice.
Like
And
that a
Great.
lot of
That's
days.
a great segue.
Yeah,
and I
just
agree
really
with
quickly, Ed.
all they
Go ahead,
say.
please.
And I agree with all that they said. I mean, mainly just normalizing it. We have a podcast, and our program has a podcast.
Yeah.
Sharing those clips. Sharing clips like if this podcast is available to be shared, sharing it so they can normalize it and see it. Understand that it's not always what you see
Yeah.
on TV. It's
Yeah.
not always a curriculum based thing. It's not always a person standing over you having more power. It's a person that relates to you in the same struggle that a look and we can communicate versus someone who doesn't look like us. We may have to break it down a little bit more, and it's being what I would want to receive, wearing information shirts that say, my therapy is this or my therapy is that, or go to therapy, going to workshops, going to health fairs where the primary focus is physical health, but making sure that we're a vendor table that they can also learn about holistic health, mental health.
Yeah, and that's nice that you say that. I have a question now. Just to kind of let you know who I am, I actually started in the mandation, so it was mostly parolees, probationers. So in your practice, you have anyone that is told to come mandated to work with you? Because we can talk about that later, April. But because I feel that that's where it's a difference, where the person who's in a black and brown communities, and that's their first open entry into this, and initially they're standoffish. So do you have folks that are mandated in your practice?
I've had some when I worked in the school system. I had a couple of young men that was mandated to come to therapy. And like you said, they were standoffish. They didn't understand why they needed it. They may have gotten into trouble, but that doesn't mean they have a mental health diagnosis. Like earlier when Camille was saying, we have feelings, we get angry, we do dumb things. When we get angry, we react, but that doesn't mean we have to go seek counseling or go to a therapist just for that. So it was a little harder working with kids that were being mandated to come into therapy when they fully did not understand why they needed the service.
Yeah.
And in previous practices, previous agencies I worked for, yes, I might have had some mandated cases. Really just meeting them where they're at, person-centered, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, you might have been referred to this, but I'm sure there's other things, even though you felt like you didn't need to be referred for that, why were you mandated? There are other things that might be impacting you as you're adjusting to, I don't know, a court mandate or a legal mandate, or, you know, just a feeling of loss of control because now you have to do something that you didn't select for yourself. Just normalizing it, being person-centered and focusing on them, not following a curriculum per se, but being open to understanding their perspective and meeting them where they're at. Not always, you know, saying it's CBT or DBT, using an eclectic approach to things or just letting them talk it out.
It's the language too. I think it's that language, right? So a lot of times, you know, we have in the mental health world, or just anywhere when you're in academia, there's a language that we use, and sometimes it doesn't resonate with individuals who are not familiar. And so those conversations, because I had the same experience that Judith had. I worked with a lot of young people who came through court or who had to come see me because they were in foster care or whatever the case may be. And the first thing wasn't about, let's not talk about, let me get to know you. Let's have a personal conversation, just you and I. We're not even going to focus on what you did, why you did it, how you did it. We'll get there if we need to. But I think it is about just having that conversation. Like I'm gonna be your friend in a sense, but something that just allows them to feel comfortable. I think establishing that in the environment is the first step. Because what happens is that you create that narrative for therapy throughout their lives. So once they've had that experience and they get with somebody who doesn't care about their work, who is just there to get a check or whatever the case may be, then that becomes the narrative for everybody else. And that's not the truth, and that's not the case. And so I think thankfully we're very self-aware to know that, like, when someone comes in us, they don't have to be. We need to have, we're open enough to be mindful of that, but everybody doesn't have that skill set. And so that's I think the part that scares me the most, because when they meet that one therapist that isn't doing their best or showing up as their best, that is really hard to kind of deal with later on.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to be relayed today, because mostly with the Black and Brown communities, I know last year we had this. We had who was our guest last year? I can't think of his name right now.
You talking about Minister Paul Scott?
No, last year, because I was supposed to be somewhere this weekend, but I believe that pretty much with the practices, when it's mandated, that's the one forcing them. And usually the goal is for that when they're done to basically exude what you just said, that it's about the biopsychosocial assessment. And sometimes when you're thinking about Johari's window, we're seeing something that you didn't see. So at the end, yes, thanks for coming. You might have had an anger management issue, but guess what? Mental health is all you. You're going to have good days. You're going to have bad days. So I just wanted to know if that was something that you're witnessing now, just to let the folks who are listening today, we are here. It could be a grieving process. It could be anything, but it's making sure that you're doing well in your life so that you can be the best person. And that's where men, I think, sometimes don't agree with women on that.
Mm-hmm.
Woo!
Wow. That was really good, Toya. And you three, spot on. I'm the same way. You have to bring down that brick wall that is up, and it's a part of what you have to do to connect. But what we're good at as Black people is connecting. And the way we connect. My verbiage, I changed from therapy to healing. That's my first starting of my conversation. I'm like, okay, we resonate with healing. How does that, serve you? Because what you're doing now is changing the whole dialogue. And so I hear you, the three of you, and I think it's awesome how you are being yourselves. And that's what makes it more important. So I do have a two-part question for the three of you, though, because I know that we're going to be focusing a little bit more, and I'll shift gears a little bit about men mental health awareness, because we do have two men here. And Blue, you are a man, and so is Mark. But Blue, you are in the mental health field, and I do want to go there with you about what that looks like and how you're dealing with that with the men that you probably serve. But here's my two-part question. What are the myths our community believe? And the second part of that is, how does this impact their mental health? So what are the myths that they believe in?
Let's start.
You could. Well, I think you said
Okay. Some of the myths that men believe, or that society believes, that if you go to therapy, you're not being strong. From my generation, I'm a generation above them, and I'm probably one generation back from Mr. Lee. We were taught that whatever's in your home stays in your home, but that so much trauma is passed down from generation to generation. So like men that come to my practice that might have been mandated or were referred or because it's something associated with their medication assisted treatment, they might be resistant to it, resistant to being open, not wanting to cry, not wanting to feel, because that is a deficit. That is something that makes them feel less than or feel weak than. I promote crying. I try to make myself cry. What movie is gonna make me cry today? So this weekend, I'll be watching that Tyler Perry movie.
Strong, right?
I haven't watched it yet. I haven't watched it yet.
Because I heard that was movie. Other myths are like, if you have to talk to somebody, you're going to be judged by that somebody. If you're talking to a woman, if you're talking to a man, and you're telling them what's going on in your world, that you're judged, you're being judged, or feeling like I didn't have the power to do it on my own. Now I have to talk to you to get there. But no, we're going through this journey together. In fact, I never have your answers. You have the answers. I'm just evoking it out of you.
That's all.
That's good. That's good.
Amen. That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
I definitely agree with everything Blue said. But another one, some that I face is crazy, right? They're always associated like mental health is something's wrong with me. I'm sick, I'm crazy. And I'm like, well, then we all are because because we all deal with different emotions, right? It's about how do we manage those emotions, how to respond to the emotions that we deal with.
That's it.
So because if you stop, think about like, okay, how can I respond to this person right now? Is it gonna make a difference if I start yelling at them as well? And having those conversations, especially with my kids, I think really helps them see like, oh, okay, well, yeah, it didn't make a difference, me yelling. I could have walked away. Walking away doesn't mean weak, because to them it's like when they get into this combative with their teachers or with their peers, they feel they need to be heard, so they just keep going back and forth. But helping them understand like it's okay to just walk off. That doesn't make you weak.
Yeah.
So definitely like the crazy something's wrong or people's going to be judging because I go to therapy is some stuff that I face with adults and with kids.
Yeah, I think you both hit the nail on the head. And I'll just add, I think the other piece is that for men specifically, I think there's this idea of Blue, you kind of touched on a little bit about I don't want to be fixed, right? I don't want you to fix me. There's something going on. And I think that there is this idea that if I go to therapy, that's all I got to do and that's it. And somebody's going to come and tell me what to do and that's that. And it's like the power is actually yours. And I think men don't always feel empowered in managing that. I think that a lot of times they feel like they're supposed to have figured this out. They're supposed to know that this is what they're supposed to do. And it's like, you're human. You are not supposed to have it all figured out. None of us do. And I think that's just a narrative that I think our generation, and Blue, we all part of the same generation, that we are learning that we've had to unlearn a lot of things because we've been in survival mode, right? And so we've been in the survival mode. We've been kind of working through trauma from, our past. And I think that it shows up so differently in our communities that we have either kind of dismissed it like it's a problem, or we ignore it because we don't know what to do with it and we don't have the language for it. So I think a lot of things that happen is they really don't have the language for it, right? I did my thesis on depression in Black men. And one of the things that my hypothesis was about, that depression doesn't look like sadness. It looks like anger. It looks like promiscuity. It looks like other things that we don't necessarily associate with emotional turmoil. And so I think that part is another thing. It's like, oh, well, I'm health. I got a family. I got a car. I got a job. I'm not feeling nothing. Everything's great. No, you still got some stuff going on, because how you show up for your children, how you show up for your wife, how you show up at work, that if you're not, showing up as your best self, or you're still coming home and you're sleeping or you're playing a video game to escape, there's something else happening, but we're just not calling it what it is. So I think that the language is a piece of it. And I think the idea of like someone's just going to fix me and I can't fix myself, that feels disempowered.
Yeah, agreed. I do have another question here.
Oh, can I just
go ahead, Toya.
I just wanted to piggyback on that. You hit the nerves where how April gives her approach. One of the things that I know that because of surviving so much is responding or reacting. Once you get to a point of peace, that's when you know that you've addressed your mental health. Because on a day-to-day basis, since you're gonna come up with things. And what I've known as successful as working in the field and not speaking and understanding, once you get there, you can manage the anger. Because guess what? One of the things that you need to ask yourself is, why did the person feel the need to do? Why did this occur? Once you start questioning that before you respond, you have it. When you're not peaceful, you react. Men and women address things very differently. You can have two people that love each other, but what does a man do? He's that machismo. The woman is the softer side. Now you have two people who have a common understanding, but it depends on how the sex responds. But a man has to have that persona. They master responding. What does women do? They say we're crazy. We're from whatever planet, because we are the reactors. We're the emotional ones. But when a woman taps into her emotional strength, then guess what? We mastered our peace. Once you get there, I've noticed it's helped. So again, you're doing some stuff there because I'm hearing them trigger words.
I think as also mental health professionals, you talk about trigger words, but I think it's the development of what's the proper language, like Cammie said, and the terminology that we're using, because in the end, it has to be layman terms. And I say that because they are not in our books. Therefore, we are absorbing terminologies and modalities and all of these things. They don't know what the heck we're talking about. So I look at it this way. If you down at 50, I'm coming down to 50. If you talk a certain way, I don't have to mirror everything you're doing, but at least can give you the platform where you can be yourself. So that's also very important when introductions happen, that you let them know, be you. I'm here just to listen. And I'm here to ride on the bus with you. You're the driver, and I'm just riding. So whatever you tell me to do, if you're telling me get off, then I just have to get off, because that's what you're telling me to do. But if you're allowing, and this is where you're talking about power, that's where empowerment comes in, that because you're starting it off that way and saying, hey, you know what? I'm just the passenger. That's it. And you're right, we're giving them the tools. We're not telling them what to do. You have it. It's just that no one ever pointed it out to you. So but my question to the three of you, right? This is really about, again, our Black and brown men.
Yeah.
So do you think Black and brown men are educated enough about therapy and the benefits?
No.
No.
I think, let me change that. Yes and no. I
Okay.
think if we're talking about today, what I have seen, and maybe it's just because of my algorithm, but I see a lot of men highlighting the importance of therapy. I see men having these conversations with each other, right? And there are these podcasts or
Yeah.
social commentary. So I think that there's a shift happening. I believe that that shift is necessary. So I do feel like there is a population, right, that is still kind of off. But I hear it in music now. I hear it. I hear it way more. I remember growing up, you did not see men talking to men. You did not about their feelings. Let me tell you, you didn't see men talking to men about their feelings, about their relationships, about how they're conquering certain things. You didn't see that. You're seeing that now. It is public and open. So I think it's moving in the direction of they are becoming educated. I do think there is still apprehension, but I don't think that the conversations are going to stop. So at some point, I believe that there'll be not maybe a total shift, but a full shift where Black men will start to maybe delve into that a little bit more. But that's just my take. I'll pass on to my partners.
I will agree with you. And I say that because one place where I felt like mental health was really shy away from was in the church.
Mm-hmm.
And now that's even changing. I will say I've been in 2 events this year where churches was hosting a program on mental health and substance use, where they invited the people in community to come in and participate so that they can know the resources that's out there in the community. And so and I will give props to my church because my church actually has service where we talk about mental health and substance use, and we host different type of programs for the church members to come in. And I spoke with 2 different men in each of the program where they were happy that this was happening in the church, where they felt like, okay, this is a safe place. And now it's opening up to where we can feel safe to talk about our mental health or talk about the struggles with substance use and not feel judged by church members.
And that's what I was going to ask and everything, because I'm glad you brought that up, because that's where actually where I was going. Is that a new direction? Because I know for a long time, a lot of churches of different denominations, but particularly in the Christian faith, had a hard time dealing with mental health and even dealing with the issue of bringing mental health into the conversation. Because let's be honest, there are some ministers that try to be therapists, even though they not have a background in therapy and all along those lines. So I just wonder your take on that, because that's where I sometimes get confused when you hear some of the ministers that want to go down that route and that rabbit hole, to use Cammie's term earlier, in terms of that tunnel of being therapists, even though they're not trained in therapy. And I think we even see it with police officers as well, which is why I'm glad that here in North Carolina, we have the HEART program, which definitely lets people get some therapy when police officers aren't necessarily trained in that therapy work and everything. So just wondering, are we seeing more of an openness to a therapy even from our religious and law enforcement communities?
I think it is expanded. I remember when I was in programming, when I was going to school, one of the churches where my friend she went to, they had mental health, and that was in 2008, and they had mental health integrated into their worship practices. But he was a licensed clinical therapist, so of course, if he's going to be now, he's a leader of a church, so of course he would want to incorporate that wellness into his Congregation?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't go to church, so I don't know. But I would say there's definitely been a large shift, a large transition. I think a lot of times people thought that all the answers was in Jesus Christ, their God, whatever. But when it's all said and done, it was never direct. It was a flaming bush. It was this, it was that, it was the parting of the seas. It was always through actions or through men. So why can't you get your help through a therapist? So
yeah. And I think like the church, I mean, I think the church was kind of for us, it was a safe space, right? That, and I think it was reveled for, this, because you got to keep in mind, we are kind of going up against the traumas of our history, right? And I think we're learning that what worked then doesn't work now. And so I feel like a lot of times, like this religiosity about Christianity and, not seeking anything outside of prayer and worship, and that's how you'll be healed by anything. And it's like, Jesus did do miraculous works, right? But Jesus also assigned people. He assigned. So, and I think, again, it's an unlearning of that. It doesn't have to be an either or. Like, you got to have Jesus or therapy. You can have both. And I think that's that concept that I think we've had. Like, even like with just seeking help. You can be a man and need help. You can be a woman and, it doesn't have to be or. And I think that either or mentality has really kind of been damaging to our communities.
Yeah, and it's I'm glad that you brought that up, because I did my, when I was active at Rutgers UBHC, and one of the guys that came in, because it was, at a university, they were saying when we do our psychosocial assessment, the spirituality is the glue. And what happens is when we did our group therapy, it was more so step one. My life has become unmanageable. What is your higher power? So one of the process that we did in the group was, what's your higher power? Some folks said, my higher power is my wife, my kids. Those are the things that when I have a decision that I want to make, that's my higher power. So I said, okay, we're going to work on that. So from there, what we did in our practicum, because we had, it's a teaching a behavioral hospital, was, what's your spirituality that's keeping you here? And that was what motivated people. Then what happens is the other group members got on board. Well, wait a minute. They came back and said, well, my higher power is my village. The people that are here when I'm not here, when I don't go to a church, but guess what? These folks come and they pray for me. And I said, that's all that it is. Yep. And that little window is what I've used. And I've carried that on. You find out what is their spiritual sense. And it does not necessarily have to be a God. But, we have folks that are Pentecostal. You have Catholics. You have Protestants. That means that you believe in something outside of yourself. And I believe that when you get to that point, you use that to break that onion open. And you go from there. And then from there, the goal is, once you're done with therapy, is that you had a positive experience. We're not going to speak about what happened when you got here. We just worked on something together. And now you can work on your anger when you feel you're upset, when you feel that you want to make a decision, because now you're responding. You're not reacting. You're mandated. But guess what? We understand why you were mandated. You felt that you had to protect your family. But now you're going to make a better decision. That's all. And then we win then.
Yeah. And then, there's a thing called church hurt, right? The church has definitely not always been a healing balm for our community. And so that, what you're talking about kind of finding what is your village or the people, like, what is your spirit? Because a lot of people have turned away from that.
Yes. Because of trauma from it. What if there was abuse in the church? Yes.
All of
They're
that.
just a human just like us.
Exactly.
I agree with that. The judgment there, not saying that it has to be that way now, because I'm not in every church. We're all not in every church, but it is still there, and it resonates with a lot of people. They have a lot of wounds. And again, it's just it's the judgment. I've seen maybe like a year ago, it was a lady that came into a church, and I guess she was trying to confess her sins from being out there as a professional street walker, right? That's all. And it may not have been the words you wanted, But everyone in there should have just gave her that moment to purge. And that's all she was doing. But at that moment, the microphone was grabbed from her. She was escorted out of there. So to her, that been a traumatic moment right there, that I will never go back into a church house. But then what happens when she wants to convert over maybe to therapy? What would that look like for her? Could she say, now, am I dealing with a person that's a church person and this person might judge me? See, again, with the Black community, it is very, we can become very hypersensitive to things that traumatize us. And once that trauma sits in with us, it is ongoing. So it's like you have to unravel it backwards. And never once did anyone ever think, as anyone that's clergy up there should have said, you know what, let's take a moment and just hear what she's saying, because she is crying out to change, and she's crying out to a higher power, right? And like you said, they are human beings like us. So how dare you stop her from trying to cleanse herself in front of everybody? Because that's all she was doing.
Yeah.
So that's it.
What was Mary Magdalene? What was Peter? What was Matthew? What was James? What was John? Who are all these people? I don't think he hang with anybody who was air quote
the undesirables. If you look at the Bible, the undesirables. The woman with the issue of blood, she touched his garment. When they keep bringing that up, it's showing that come as you are. But those were the ones. And if you think when they put the palms down for Palm Sunday, it wasn't frankincense, myrrh, all those things. It was palms. They were just covering his feet so he wouldn't walk on the ground. That's all that they had. And when they said, when you tithe and the person gave their last, this is what they have, heal me. They only say you had $100, you gave all of it. And all they're asking in church is for 10%. So we can go on and on about that. But right now, for this sake of this, is the spirituality. That's it. It doesn't matter, because it changed your heart to make you see the error of your ways. Yes, Dr. Diamond. That's it.
I will add to there are some churches that will support, right? You have a lot of churches out there that will support, regardless of how the verbiage was. They will just welcome. However, you have someone that may have been traumatized from a church that did not, and hesitate to go to the next one that probably will, which is the same thing when it comes to therapy, the clinicians and that's why, earlier when Camille say, shop around, right? Find the one that works for you, find the one that supports you, and don't put all of us under one umbrella. Just like we shop around, like I did a YouTube video, don't watch it because it was horrible, but but just helping people understand, like, to normalize therapists just as we normalize our doctor. Like, if my doctor is not doing what I feel like they should be doing, I'm going to find another one in my network. I'm not going to stick with the same person that's not treating me with respect. And again, to remember, we are all humans. We all have our own demons that we're dealing with, no matter how many days they go to church on Sunday, how loud they pray, they are still human at the end of the day. They have their own demons. So not to personalize one or a few individuals with everyone else. So like, okay, that church may not have welcomed me. Those individuals may have been dealing with their own demons, but it's not me, it's them. We can't personalize how somebody reacts to what we're going through. We have to find one that will respond to what we're going through.
I think to come back to address that, because I was thinking about everything that we've kind of been talking about, even with church. Because I'm like, a lot of times the first step that people take, it may not be church, it may be a teacher, it may be a community member, it may be a church, right? And if their first interaction with expressing specifically, and I'm talking about men, if their first step in doing that comes back with a reaction that they're not expecting, that's negative, that defines how they will seek out support later. And so I wonder if and this is something that I don't know, this is probably big speaking, but I wonder if mental health, even like with policing, mental health education, mental health knowledge should be a mandatory class. It should be a mandatory component of clergymen. It should be mandatory because I feel like a lot of people think they know, but they have no idea. And they're basically putting their trauma on other people while they're trying to, when someone comes to support them. Like if somebody comes and says, "Hey, I need help with something," I immediately, it's ain't about me. But everybody doesn't have that skill set. We've been trained in that, so we know how to do that. But everybody doesn't have that training, and I just wonder if that's a necessary. Like if we need to have, whether it be starting in the school systems, and whatever, but somewhere that mental health is just embedded in all of um, these different levels that people can be aware and
But
be able to better with it.
Cammy, along those same lines, and that's where I was going to go with the conversation earlier and everything, is not just with mental health and training the religious folks and everything, but it seems to me that a lot of times we get into this notion of mental health and what is good for mental health. Because as you know, I work at a cultural arts center and I've been working here for decades and everything, the Hayti Heritage Center, and I've definitely been involved in this notion of play. And we know that play is very important to our life and to our livelihood and everything like that. But I think that sometimes the school systems get us out of play, and play is a very much an important part, from what I understand, of therapy as well. But I think that we get taken out of that notion of play, even though it's an important part of therapy. So I just wanted y'all's take on that, because I feel that once we get to a certain level, we get into, and you kind of alluded to it earlier, Cammie, that whole notion of adulting, and we don't want to have that notion of how important play is and everything in our lives, whether that's in relationships, whether that's in family. If you've got kids, I don't have any kids, but I do have my nephews and everything, or that's just in terms of your daily life and everything along those lines, because we're so busy worrying about the bills, worrying about the man, worrying about everything else, that we get out of that notion of play. So I just wanted your take on that, because I think that we do a horrible job in the education system and just generally of uh, kind of quelling and kind of pushing down on that notion of play and creativity. And I think that's a vital part that we don't deal with enough.
I think joy, specifically Black joy, should be like, I don't think it's the responsibility anymore of the schools. I don't think we can rely on the schools anymore to do that. I think that is something that we have to cultivate in our own homes. I think that is something we have to cultivate in our own communities. Um, I'm a part of a group called Village of Wisdom, and we as parents come together and we talk about cultivating spaces for our young people, for our young geniuses, right? And I think the goal of it is really, how do we cultivate this idea of curiosity, and joy, for our children. And so I think, as much as I would love to say the schools have evolved, I think they have not. They have, in a sense, almost kind of taken devolved. Yeah, exactly. Because you know what I mean? And so I don't even think, but I think one, we do have to start young. We have to create that now with our children. But the thing about it is, as those who are, who may not have children or adults, I think there is a point of, we still have to tap into it. I get like, I'm inundated. I'm the one that goes down rabbit holes and looks at all my news feeds, and I'm like, oh my God, doom scrolling, doom scrolling. I hate this world. Whatever. But I have people around me who be like, listen, let's go outside, get some sunlight. And it can be simple things. It doesn't have to be costly things, but I do think that we need to find ways to cultivate our joy into our daily lives, into our children's lives. And that requires intention. It requires to be intentional about those things. I love how, I think Raleigh did something with, like, they had adult play day or something like that. I didn't go, but they had like all these games from back from when you were kids. Like, we have to learn how to tap into that more regularly, because we are under attack. Our mental is under attack. Our spiritual is under attack. Our knowledge is under attack. And so I think we do have to, like, again, take it into our own hands, y'all, and come together and create pockets of joy for us to really kind of celebrate ourselves and each other. But
Agreed. Agreed.
definitely.
And you said a game day. Do you know that some parents don't know how to parent?
Oh, yeah,
Working,
honey, I question every
and
day.
I'm gonna just say that. I'm just gonna say that that was just what's on my spirit. One of the things
Yep.
is working with DIFUS, the parents. We had a program at the university strengthening families, right? When we put it out there, folks didn't come. The only ones who attended were the ones that are mandated through DIFUS. When I say that curriculum with how to do bedtime, setting up a routine. So now one of the things that I am involved in is mentoring the kids in the organizations that I'm in. And now I'm talking about protect your pocketbook. Okay. Do you know what that is? Something that I'm doing is children's books. What does it mean to protect your pocketbook? Losing a mother so young, things I had to learn from the street, other parents, they were young. So what happens is the villages having a big mama and a big pop, pop there. When they don't have it, these kids that are having kids don't know about parenting. So I want to plug that now. Like you just said, start at home. At school, there's no home economics, there's no typing, there's no word processing. Didn't we learn those things? Those things are non-existent.
Yeah.
My son had to take business management in 9th grade. He didn't know anything about that. That course should have been in the 11th and 12th grade because they didn't have anything to fill their schedule. So now the parents that are listening in the Black and brown communities, because we don't have the big mamas there to send your children, you need to go through those things. Hygiene. Speaking with my niece, the children are getting their menses before the age of 12. That's all I'm going to say. I had to get a calendar with her with something to explain it. I said, you turn around, you look at the toilet to make sure. So I'm just saying the parenting the kids, you understand? I'm just the auntie. That's all I'm saying. We need to take these particular issues, which explains, as you mentioned before, it's okay to be upset. Because what are the little kids is? My little nephew was being bullied and hit someone. The principal said, oh, that's my guy. That's my guy. Where's the dean of students here? He should be here. Where's the formal letter to the parent of how many times these infractions have occurred? So I don't want to go into that rabbit hole. But now these young parents don't know what it means to foster our young kids' mental health. Because what happens is these kids end up fighting. Then they get ostracized. They want to put them in special education classes that are not for them because behavior is not an issue. It's the cognitive ability. So I'm going to plug that.
Yeah, build that village. The village is what
Yes.
I think at the end of the day, we have to create our own villages and come around our babies and really kind of support them and support the parents. Because honestly, I'm a parent I have 3 children. I have a teen, a preteen, and he's not a toddler, he's 4. And I'm like every day, I'm like, Lord, okay, which one is gonna try me today? But but I'm a part of a village of parents who give me tools. And so I think that again, as a community, y'all, we've got to be proactive. Like I love how you were talking about teaching young ladies and young men how to take care of their hygiene, how to take care of their bodies. Just even a routine, like that stuff is like, I know, like I struggle with creating a routine, and it may look like I got my stuff together, but I struggle, and sometimes we don't want to honor our own mistakes. We don't want to honor the fact that we don't always know, because what my mom did worked for her, it don't work for my children. So I have to find different ways. Luckily, I seek out support, but everybody doesn't know how to do that either. And so I think we've got to begin to create and make it more accessible. And I think that the more that we do it and the more that we invite our communities to come together to start and establish these villages, the stronger that we can become.
I definitely agree with that.
Just really quickly, if I can just divert to another conversation really quickly and everything along those lines. Just really quickly, one of the things that I was curious about, in it's an important issue that is out there, and as a matter of fact, we're getting ready to deal with it with a major creative institution and a creative pioneer here and everything along those lines. But part of therapy is also dealing with grieving. So I just wanted y'all's thoughts around that, because we just lost a major drum hero, Bradley Simmons, here in this area and everything along those lines. So there's a lot of people that have been grieving over that for the last month or so, and they'll actually be doing a memorial service to him later on this afternoon. So I just wondered, in terms of therapy, how important it is therapy with the grieving process.
I don't want to take it. I'll speak to that, but I want to show they definitely got something to say about it. But I want to say this. I I realized that in our communities we tend to shy away from grief for some reason. It's like we want to quickly move through it, quickly get over it, and that's not how grief works. Grief is not linear. grief is not even cyclical in a sense. It is all over the place. And so I think that is something that is not well known. People expect that, oh, I should get over this quickly, or I should not be feeling like this. Or they're on the other side of the spectrum where they're just constantly going through it and reeling and reeling and reeling and reeling. And it is a traumatic experience that we have to go through. It's just life. And I think creating again that village, right? Of talking about how we're feeling, because grief shows up. It doesn't just show up like crying, it may show up as frustration and anger. I know when I lost my dad, I was angry and I didn't even catch it at first. I was angry, and I wasn't angry at people, I was just angry at God. And I had to kind of sit with that for a minute and check myself about it. It showed up in my motivation. It showed up in how I, completed tasks, how I related with other people. And so I think that grief is something that we need to learn more about. We need to tap into more because we don't understand how to process it, and we don't allow ourselves to process it because we feel like we have to kind of push it away because nobody wants to talk about death. Death is taboo, but we all got to go through it. We all are going to experience it one way or another. So
wow. I just buried my uncle yesterday, and that's where and to have family, it was on a Friday and folks couldn't get there. And so now you just listen to people, but you have to understand when folks don't discuss that. When a person is married, that's their unit. You can't get upset about what the arrangements are. If you're meant to be there, you'll be there. So now that's something that is very fresh. And I just say, God always brings us to stuff, right? Dr. Diamond, like he brings it up. But again, and especially with the Black men and how they grieve. It's about the men today. And he was the patriarch, and now I am the matriarch by default. So it comes on to that. It's a different generation, and understanding as a mental health professional, you do not go against a boundary. When a person sets up a boundary, you respect it. You can't get angry, and when someone is lost, you have to understand and respect the wishes of who's in charge. And I think sometimes in the Black and brown communities, it gets us upset. But how are you upset? We're here to grieve someone. Yeah. If you want to be here, you're going to be here. You shouldn't speak any ill wills or negativity about what anyone decided. That's it. So again, that's a big area that we need a whole nother topic, Dr. Diamond, on a Saturday about that.
Yeah, we are a whole lot of other topics. But go ahead, Judith. You up?
No, I agree completely with Camille. I think grief is like the hardest topic that I've had to encounter in therapy, especially with the Black men, because they do come in, the ones I dealt with, that facade of like, I'm okay. And again, like suppressing like that emotion because they're afraid to letting it out. Like it's not, they're supposed to be okay by now, so they're gone, I'm okay with it, but you're not, and it's okay not to be okay, right? It, like she said, it's not a timeline. You may have, and sometimes being happy knowing that you just lost someone is okay too. Like you don't have to be so down when you want to enjoy yourself and you want to go out. It's the taboo of like, when somebody passed away, you're supposed to feel a certain way for a certain amount of time, and then you're supposed to move on. But I know I've gone up and down with emotion of my grief process. And also grief is not necessarily losing somebody to death. You can grieve of separation or a divorce or any type of grief, and it still looks similar to somebody that just lost somebody through death.
Yes, thank you for that, for sharing that.
Yeah, go ahead, Blue.
Blue, you have something on grief?
Coming up on the 30th anniversary of my brother's death. He was murdered in July 13th, 1995. And I tell people all the time that, just because something happened a year ago, 2 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, that the sting of death, you don't have to be like, oh, why am I feeling like this? Let's say you came to me years later. Why am I feeling like this? I still feel the same sting now, just talking about it. And I'm definitely going to feel it in July that I felt 20, 30 years ago. And I'm going to feel it every single time, probably until I die. When I see his children, when I see his grandchildren, children that wasn't even born yet, twins that were not even born yet when he passed, to see that they never knew him like I knew him. Just that when people come into my practice, men come into my practice, and they're wondering, why am I feeling like this? Why am I weepy? Why am I crying? Why am I hurting? Why not? You feel what you feel. Let's work through it. Let's process it. Let's say it aloud, and let's understand that this is now, and we can feel this now, and we can feel that we don't have to say, oh, I felt it, it's over. There's no closed chapters on death. There's no closed chapters on grief. It can resonate in different ways over time, I tell people to build ceremonies or build things into your life. I remember when I met her, she had altars that was dedicated to her pain, to the things that she wanted to control, the things that she loved in her life. And when she got away from her altar, that might have caused some pain in her life. Build those ceremonies back into your life to resonate with your inner self.
Yeah, your secret place. Your
Yeah.
secret
Yeah.
place. That's what my pastor says. It's a secret place. You come to church, this is the hospital. Create your secret place when you're not here.
So I wanted to touch on this because we're getting closer to the end of the show, but I do want to talk about grieving behaviors that can be intergenerational, right? From one generation to the next. We don't hone into that because we are almost conditioned, like we're kind of touching on it. We're conditioned a little bit on how we don't deal with grief and how we do. Men aren't supposed to cry, so hold it in. How do I understand grief? That it can be multiple losses that can make me feel some form of grief. Our families, if we look at it through lineage, the grieving process isn't what we have always known it now to be, that we should be open with it. Back then it was the person passed away, everybody wear black, you go to the grave site, done and over with, you go to the repast and you're done. Did you hear a conversation yet about how to deal with it? No. So this is why I'm saying it's very much of grieving behaviors that we adopt from our family members, and then we don't know how to deal with it when it comes up. So I do agree with you, Blue, that it stings forever when you lose someone. I lost my mom when I was very young, and it does sting. There were a time that I didn't even acknowledge Mother's Day until I had my son, because I didn't. I blocked it totally out. That's when I disassociated. And when you're young, you don't even know you're disassociating. And guess what? I never learned to grieve because my grandmother didn't show me how to do it. My aunt didn't show me how to do it, or my other, aunts and uncles, they didn't, because they didn't know. So I'm looking at it as a whole, and how do we deal with that when we have those that are in front of us that are grieving and they're black and they're brown? I think it's just being curious about the grieving process of the family. How did your family grieve, and what did you learn from them? And I think that's the starting point, because Judith, like you, at first I didn't know how to deal with it in therapy, so I was afraid of it. But then I had to challenge myself and say, oh no, I need to ask more questions about how did they grieve. So I'm wondering, do you agree or disagree what I said about grieving behaviors and how that can be generational?
I definitely agree that it can be generational, because based on how you seen your parents do it, then that's what you know, right? You're a product of your environment. So whatever you grew up with, that's your norm. Until, again, with the whole shift Camille was talking about, like now that things are shifting, we're letting them know, like, it's okay to grieve differently. It can look like this, and it's okay. So yes, our generation, definitely how they dealt with it, that's what I knew. However, now I think we're helping them see that there's a difference and that they can grieve differently, and it's okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. I agree too. What you were talking about made me think. I can't remember her last name, but it's Dr. Joy, and she talked about the post-traumatic
Mm-hmm.
slave syndrome. Yeah.
Yes.
And that it makes me think about we were not, our communities were not allowed to feel. We weren't.
Right.
We weren't allowed to. We had to just keep moving. We had to keep going. And I think that's the lineage, right? Is you keep
Mm-hmm.
going. You ain't got time to feel, girl. Get up, go on, get to work. You know what I mean? Even taking time off, right? Like I remember like I would like hold my sick days. I got like, 500 hours of sick time because I didn't understand that I needed mental health days or I needed time away from work unless I was really about to die. you know? So I think that the lineage that you're talking about and how we've seen our parents, our families deal with their emotions, whether it be grief or anything, we take that. And I do believe that, again, it's an unlearning process because we're realizing that what our parents did, what our generations before did, and holding that in, it killed us. It broke
Yeah.
us. And
Yes.
now we're having to really like identify that emotions are not all like we are not always supposed to feel good. It is not always going to be joyful. It is not always going to be rainbows and sunshine, y'all. It is going to be painful. And I tell this to my daughter all the time, like, baby girl, you are going to have days where you don't like things. You're not like anger may not always feel good. It's not supposed to. It's not supposed to feel good. Sit with what don't feel good for right now. You'll get through it, and then we can go and do something else. But for now, sit with what don't feel good because we run away from that. And because we run
That's
away
right.
from what don't feel good, we're running away from that grief. We're running away from those feelings that are negative that we're like, we're not supposed to, I don't like it. But sometimes you just
Mm-hmm.
gotta sit with it and just let it do its thing. Let it do its thing. And I think that's the path to healing and really, addressing things. And then call on your village. Like, I want to cry on the phone today, friend. Can I cry with you? Cool. Let's do it together. We're gonna do it together. You know what I'm saying? Like we have to continue to normalize that. Yo, everything ain't all sunshine.
But
Like,
it goes
for real.
back to what Toya was saying, where parenting,
Oh yeah.
right? If the parents are teaching their kids, like you say, you have to talk with your daughter all the time,
Mhm.
right? So she may not fully understand it now. However, as you continue to have that talk, it's gonna click.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she's gonna be able to understand it. And later on, she'll be able to like explain it to her own kids. So it's about that again, I guess breaking the cycle. Like
Yeah, you got
teaching
to.
your kids how to do it differently than how you were taught. And it's but people feel like, well, I came out okay. No, you didn't. Like, like you did not come out okay. And
Right.
it's okay not to be okay. Because I've heard that a lot. Like, well, this is how my parents did it, and I turned out fine. Like, did you though?
Right. That is a statement that's made just to kind of sweep things under the rug or push you back. So you're not going to be curious enough to ask those questions because you're being pushed back. And, I'm pretty sure like all of us that have been sitting in front of someone and doing some therapeutic intervention, you are going to get a pushback from those that look like us. Yeah, because they're afraid and fear is real. And when you're looking at fear, that means you're fearing what you really are going back to look at. Okay, because I do a lot of inner child work, and when I do that, there's fear there because you don't want to go back to what you actually went through, which is the trauma part. And I'm not going to delve into the trauma because I would like to invite the three of you back so we can talk about trauma, because I think that is a segment by itself. So I will definitely reach out to the three of you in the next few weeks. And I think we need to come back and address trauma and have that whole segment like as soon as you come in and I would like to invite you in at 11 o'clock so we can start from the beginning and talk about identifying what trauma looks like. What does that look like for men, women, and children? Because it is a difference. There's also a difference where you're talking about Dr. DeGuri. Yes, she's right. Post-slave syndrome, that's post-traumatic slave syndrome. That's real. That was a part of my dissertation because I tapped into African-American women of darker hue and how they were treated differently and why. And then look at when I went back to the history, that Willie Lynch letter will address that. and how that actually traumatized us from that conception till now. So it is a hell of a discussion, and I would like to have it with you all. So I'm hoping that we can do that soon. And I do want to, and I'm gonna kind of reel it in so we can get to what you would like to your closing remarks to be to our listeners. And, you know, again, we're going to invite you back on the couch with us with Camille, Judith, and Blue to talk about trauma. So we invite you back very soon on that. And please look for that on Facebook. But before we get there, I would like for you to talk about what would like to offer to, you know, party to our community that's listening to us today. And that will be coming back later to listen to our segment.
I don't want to go first.
Something that you would, to the listeners, I would say Ubuntu. I am because we are, you know what I'm saying? A lot of times we live in isolation where, you know, we all about ourselves and we stay maybe with our spouse or our things and we have these small circles. Expand in our circles. Ubuntu. I am because we are. Seek out your village, grow your village, and, you know, be around people that feed back into you and pour back into you as you pour into them, and move yourself away from people that you constantly pour into, but yet they never refill your vessel.
I would say be willing to unlearn the things that no longer serve you. It is okay to walk away from the things that don't work for you anymore, whether it be people, places, things, behaviors, beliefs. Let them go so that you can embrace something new that can help you be better and break those.
For me, it's okay not to be okay. We're all learning every day something new, and being open and honest with yourself, and seeking out the help that you need to be your best yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark, do you have any parting words for our listeners today that joined us on the couch?
Well, it's another amazing episode of The Couch. Glad that we have these three amazing guests from my neck of the woods, the Triangle, and all along those lines. But definitely glad to be able to have this couch conversation. And as always, in partying and everything, go out there with a positive attitude. Go out there with a belief in yourself. And definitely that is a thing that I have always a big believer in. And yeah, there'll be some hard times, but even in those hard times, hopefully you can find some lightness and joy even when you're having those hard and difficult times as well. So that's what I would live as the positive message. I know that just a couple of weeks ago, we had a bird watching group here. It was an African-American bird watching group and everything. And sometimes it's the simple things to enjoy, just like listening to the songs of the birds or watching the butterflies that can bring you joy in life, that can find you a tranquil moment when you're having those harsh times in the life. So that's what I would leave folks is step outside in nature and enjoy some of the sights and sounds out there, even if you're having a stressful day in your relationship, in your family, or if you've got children with your children and everything. And you can find a little peace of mind in knowing that, hey, even the birds and the bees go through the problems as well.
Yes. Toya?
I'm gonna keep it brief because I'm the one that like to get down to the nitty gritty because of all the audiences. But just know this, that, you know, love yourself. And sometimes, you know, our heartstrings are going to be tapped. And what I've learned now, just dealing with survival, is understanding that that is somebody out there telling you that something's not right. So respond to it and just know that I'm not perfect. Be unapologetic and love myself. And be still and know that, you know what, if God brings you to it, he's going to bring you through it. And I know I haven't been on with more than therapy, but that's my thing. Because you know what? Pressure makes diamonds. And when I'm uncomfortable, that's when I bloom the most.
That's right.
Amen.
Wow, that was awesome, Toya. I love that. So for my parting words, first of all, Camille, Judith, and Blue, I thank you very much today for joining us on the couch. So you have provided some vital information to our community, especially surrounded around mental health, but then also what happens when men need the same help that is necessary when they're going through things, and breaking down those myths and breaking down the barriers and all of the things that will prevent those from going forward to get their healing, because we resonate with healing. That's what our folks did before they even came to this country. They focused on what healing looked like. All the ceremonies and everything you think about was about healing process. And that's what we're good at. And that's why we do what we do. And when we didn't know why we supposed to be in this helping field, we always was boomerang back to it. So go back to what I'm saying, because you will boomerang back to it when you probably thought you were supposed to be doing something else. You were thrown right back into the helping world, because that is your nature. That's what you was born to do. So I want to tell you that and resonate that in your mind, and know that, because I went through that process myself, because I started in medical, but then people kept talking to me and I said, I don't even know what is wrong with these people, because I have scrubs on and I got a stethoscope on. What is it? That's why you're talking to me. Well, God is powerful to say enough already. Get out of what you're doing and go the other way, because I need you to help people. Talk to them and be that person for them, because I keep sending these people your way and you don't listen. So I'm pretty sure the things you've been through.
Are you throwing daggers at me? Because they over here kicking me. Because I stepped away, as I know, I stepped away from the field, and these folks right here is kicking me. And
BSN, a BSN, psych. I had 2 clinicals left. Seton Hall, BSN. That would have been my 3rd degree. Okay. So I said I'm gonna do psych, and then I end up somewhere else. So
I hear you. I receive that.
I'm telling you.
Yes. I wanted to give you those parting words, because I know that we are here for a reason and we connect for a reason. And I do want to bring you back again in at least 2 weeks or maybe 3 weeks from now, whatever we do, again, feeling out your time. So to my people on the couch, right? We got a lot of information today, and I thank everyone for sharing that information to our community. Mental health in men. Know when to seek help for your mental health. You got to know when you need it. Okay. Judith said it. She said, if you go to the doctor, you need that doctor for specific things. So you need us for your healing. And if you don't want it, you need to sit down and figure out why you don't want that healing, or have someone intervene to help you, to guide you to get to your healing. Know that therapy is the word that is scientifically used. We are people of healing nature. We are brown people. We connect to the earth. We were born from the earth. So understand why we're trying to help you get back to what you know. This is what we're here for. This is what the couch was made for us to sit and talk about the hard topics and things that we need to address in our community. I hope you all walked away with something, knowing that, one, we're here for you. We're here to give you what you need so you can prosper in this world. Right now, things are tough. We are facing an uphill battle, but remember, this is not necessarily our battle. We're supposed to be sitting back now and watching, because it has nothing to do with us. So take that time and start healing yourself, because you're going to need it soon as we go along with this person that's sitting in the White House, but we're not going to talk about that. That's a whole nother topic. But I will say, all of you that joined us on the couch, we thank you so much for doing so. And I'm going to pop you all to the back real quick. So again, thank you all for joining us on the couch today. We enjoyed our conversation with our 3 experts, Camille, Judith, and Blue, and we will see them again. And we thank you all for joining us on the couch. As always, have a wonderful Saturday. Have a prosperous week. Peace, love, and tranquility. Take care, you guys, and have a good one.
Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of On the Couch. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation and found it as enlightening and inspiring as I did. Remember, the stories and experiences we share here are just the beginning of a much larger journey. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, look for the notification on Facebook, and find us on your favorite podcast platform. Your support helps us keep the conversation going and reach more listeners just like you. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and keep the dialogue alive. Peace, love, and tranquility. Take care, and we'll see you on the couch.